I believe we are live streaming. Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for coming tonight to this special time with Rabbi Pesach Sherbo. We're so looking forward to what he has in his heart to present to us tonight, to deliver to us, and just looking forward to his teaching. Now, we got Terry Hayes, of always. Sometimes, he's my mentor, and Rabbi Pesach is the head mentor, and then we go on up. But anyway, we got Terry Hayes tonight, and we got Amuela Asher, we got Yeoman Asher, and Thomas Schaus. Did I pronounce that correct, Thomas? Thomas Schaus and Wendell Parsons. Ain't I getting better every time I say your name, Wendell? I'm getting so much better. Listen, we're so glad to have you here tonight. Some of you may be listening by Torah for the Nations YouTube channel. We want to ask you to subscribe to that channel, give a thumbs up, and hit that bell notification. That way you'll be notified every time that we have the Sunday night program with Rabbi Pesach Sherbo. And the Wednesday night is also Torah for the Nations and B'nai Noach Connection with Israel. And Terry and I just kindly fill that in, but that is still Rabbi Pesach's time, and we so appreciate him honoring us to ask us to do that for him. That was the YouTube channel. You that are listening by way of B'nai Noach Connection with Israel Facebook page, please share the videos, give a thumbs up, and if you got any bad comments, why, keep them to yourself. Thank you so much. I'll just leave that right there. I'm getting bold in my old age, Rabbi. I'm getting bold in my old age.
There you
go. So we're going to start the class off tonight. I had somebody call me just less than an hour ago, and they found their son had passed away, found him in the bed, and I told him we would give tzedakah and dedicate this class to them tonight. So we're giving tzedakah tonight in our tzedakah box for Bobby Lee, blessed memory and family. And we know that the Creator is going to come in and give peace in that situation. So we're dedicating this class tonight to Bobby Lee. Rabbi Pesach, are you ready to go?
Ready to roll.
I'm going to put you on speaker view, and you can just have at it.
All righty. Okay, I guess I'm on speaker view. I just want to, first of all, let's talk about what just happened about the tzedakah at the beginning of the program. Anybody that has wants to remember a loved one, wants to hold up somebody before God because they're sick or they need a healing, or someone's having a wedding, someone just had a new child, just let Scotty know, and we can read them before we can dedicate the teaching to them each time we teach. It's always good to give tzedakah also, but it's also good to have the dedication, because we are essentially telling God, look, in memory of these people or in honor of these people, we're studying your word. So it's a mitzvah for us, and it's a mitzvah for those, even those who are no longer with us. So it's a good habit to get into, always, to have the dedication. Okay, one of the things I want to talk about is everybody's learning Torah, and that's great. And you're learning the book of Genesis, and you're learning the stages of creation, and what happens during creation, what happens to Chumash, the 5 books of Moses, is full of God's plan for the world. What's going to be here, how he wants people to react, interact, the animals, the trees, everything. And like last week, the Torah portion, there's 613 commandments for Jewish people. There were 74 of them in one Torah portion. One after another after another. And this week, again, there are more in them. Okay, this tells us the mechanical workings of what God wants. This tells us when you come to God, each person who was born is born. God wants you here on this earth. That's why you're here. No, not for any other reason, because he wants you here. And each person has a job. Whether we discover what it is or not is up to us, because it's not, he doesn't hand us an envelope or say, okay, this is your mission, and hand you a card or something. But what we have to do is go through life learning about what God requires of people. What is the minimum he requires? What does he want from us to be human beings? Something created in his image. And sometimes, and I'm guilty of it myself, when we take that phrase, created in his image, we look at our hands and our feet and our nose and our ears and things like that, but that's not what he's talking about at all. It's not what he's talking about. This body that we have is simply a mode for us to get around in and to be present on this earth and do what he wants us to do on this earth. Because the soul itself that comes from him that gets put in the body doesn't have any way of doing anything. It doesn't have hands and eyes and ears and mouth and all those things. So it has to have the body. Just like if we want to travel a long distance, we need a car or we need a train or we need whatever to get to where we're going. So wait a minute. God created everything. So he created a man, and we read it. We were just joking about it earlier with Amuela. He created man from a pile of dirt. Now, women he didn't, but guys he did. And the important thing here is that really the creation? Is that what we're all made from? Is the dirt of the earth? Well, let's think about this a minute. If what we're in, our body is a mode of locomotion and accomplishing things for him, what is doing inside the body? What is doing what it needs to be done? And that's what we call the soul. And the soul has different parts to it inside us. It comes directly from him into our bodies. Now, there's a very complicated way in which it happens. And it comes from what people call Zohar, the book of Zohar, which are the teachings of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, which didn't come into I'm going to use this word, realization, until about 2,000 years ago, 1,900 years ago. And that rabbi is buried right out our window here up on Mount Meron. He's called the Rashbi. And he had an altercation with the Romans, and he went into hiding, and he was in a cave with his sons for 12 or 13 years. And while he was in this cave in the darkness, and his sons bringing him food and everything, and he couldn't go outside, he started studying very deeply, wanting to reach out to God, which we all want to do. All of us in one way or another want to have that connection with God, but he was a gifted man. So he essentially spoke out the Zohar to his sons, who wrote it down. And then the Zohar is the primary book or the primary text of what we call Kabbalah. And a lot of people, oh, what's Kabbalah? Oh, it's magic. It's no good. It's black magic. It's whatever. You know, Scotty was just telling me before we went on the air that there's a new teaching about how, amongst the Christians, by the way, not amongst us, how God created everything, and then Satan came in and brought in the blackness and the evil and put it on top of what God created. And so God's been spending all this time repairing everything that Satan broke. That's so far from what is reality, it's unbelievable. Every single thing that exists, God has revealed to us in existence. In other words, if there is such a thing as the devil, which there isn't, God would have created it. And if it's God's creation, the devil could never go against what God wanted him to do anyway. You just can't. Angels were not created, they could rebel against God. So let's go back. I'm going to go back to the Zohar because we're going to get this all. The revelation of creation we're going to talk about in just a second here. It's a primary text, and it has a very preeminent role in what we've studied. Don't forget, the Jews have been studying the Word of God since Abraham, almost 4,000 years. And then you got people that came along 2,000 years ago and called themselves, today they call themselves Christians or Catholics or whatever. And they're going to, without studying the depth of what the Jew has studied, they're going to tell us what God meant and what God said. And truly what happens here is exactly what this new thing that Christians are teaching about, where God's creation had something put on top of it to reinterpret it. And that's exactly, I mean, I'm just speaking truth here. I'm not trying to put anybody down. But the whole idea of Christianity and Islam and all these other things, people went to God's word that the Jews had studied for thousands of years and said, okay, hey, that looks pretty good. We're going to put our stuff right on top of it. It'll fit in very nicely so that the truth at the core of it will be there. So everybody will be able to see the truth. But here's what we think happened after that. And they change everything. So you got, it's like people that study their whole lives to learn let's talk about brain surgery. You study your whole life and you're saving people's lives and you're learning more and more and more about the mysteries of the workings of the brain. And along comes somebody that studied for 5 minutes compared to the time you studied, and he starts telling people, no, it's not right, and it's this, and it's the other thing. And a lot of damage gets done in the world, and that's evil. But man does it, not God. So the basic works of Kabbalah, there's some earlier works called the Sefirot, the book of how things were created, and the Sefer HaBa'ir, which is the light of what happened, because giving the light off. But the Zohar is very comprehensive. And it's a practical source for all the Kabbalistic teachings that happened here, actually, in Tzfat about 500-600 years ago. And it's pretty amazing what happened. I don't even know how I ended up here in Tzfat. It's such a spiritual town, and it has all of this. But the Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, Rashbi, from the 2nd century, he was the master of Zohar. And he had a bunch of people that he taught and everything like that. And Rabbi Akiva is one of the people. We've all heard of Rabbi Akiva, I think, in the 1st century, and the Romans and everything else. And he recorded a lot of it himself from the sons. Anyway, the authorship went over many generations. It wasn't just, but the revelation started with Rashbi. And it was revealed to us in the same order of the parashot, or the Torah portions that are in the 5 books of Moses. And it helped us learn the deeper truths of what's there, although we still haven't hit the very rock bottom of the deep truths. And I don't think we'll ever get there because we can't grasp some of these things like Hashem can, but we can delve into them. We can understand it. Okay, the book of Genesis is really, really great, but it's not it's the simple thing of creation. God created man, he created woman, he created the animals. Adam gave names to all the animals. Then, wait a minute, let's get man and woman married and let's have children and all that. That's all the simple stuff. But where did it come from? That is the big question. Where did all this come from? Now, got too many things on the screen, but I got to get stuff up in front of me. Okay. don't think I'm going to share screen right now. There, Kabbalah says, here's how everything was created. There are 4 worlds, but they're not places like planets, like we're sitting on here. They're the 4 stages of creation, or we call them stages of removal. Now, I'm going to use some words here, and I'm going to explain them. Next week, we'll get into greater depth on each level, but I'm giving an overview this week. These stages are an aspect of the creation process. They do not conflict with the 6 days of creation in Genesis. Everything starts from the removal of what we call Ein Sof, without end. God is light. And as the light dims itself, we can see, the only way I can give it, and you've probably all heard this before, that if you look into the sunlight, all the sun rays are in the sun, but you can't see them as separate. You just see the sun up there in the sky. If you're sitting in your house and the sun comes through the window and through a curtain, and the curtain has a little part in it, and a ray of sun comes into your house, and in that ray you can see dust particles and things like that. You see one ray of the whole sun, but if you look back at the sun, you can't see it because it's all one bright light. You just can't see it. So here are the 4 worlds, and we're using this term worlds as, I guess, more of a parable than anything else. Because as they come different, as they come down from God, and God covers his light, and we're going to get into all the different things that happens. It's really not as difficult as it sounds. The first world, and we use world in quotes, is called Atzilut, or emanation. It is a divine world. It's where everything is. Everything is there already, although we can't see it, because God hasn't dimmed his light enough for us to see the different things. If we were in the world of Atzilut and we were all in a room like this together as souls, we wouldn't be able to see the individuals, because God's light would be. If you ever stood on a stage and talked to a group of people out there, and the spotlights are on you, you only see the lights, right? You don't see all the individual people, but as soon as they dim the lights a little bit, you can see everybody in the crowd. So it's a little like that. This is called the unchanging. This is the divine world. Now, when we go down one step to Beriah, creation, that's considered heaven. And it's the first separation from the divine in the location of the throne of God and the archangels. In other words, God has dimmed his powerful light enough that people can see, the archangels can see each other. And we're there, but we can't see anything. We're still in God's light, but the ones that are allowed to see in that world can see. Then we have the world of what we call Yetzirah, which is formation. That's where the lower angels are, men's souls, and the Garden of Eden actually is. So the Garden of Eden can be right outside your window, but you're not going to see it, because the light that we have here, it's when we look at, we can't see it because God hasn't allowed us to see it, because he hasn't dimmed light enough for us to see it. And the last world is where we live, Asaya, or Asiya, the action. We're in the action. This is where we are. It is the world of action. Wait a minute, I pushed the wrong button here by accident. I don't know what I'm doing. That's what we see every day. Drive to work, get married, have children, have whatever. We can see this world because God allows us to see it We're going to talk about how he allows us to see it in just a moment. Here's a simple way of understanding the four worlds. Compared to someone building a house. The person determined that one day they would build their own house. I'm going to go build a house. That's the world of emanation. The thoughts in my head, nothing's there yet. Then I go into the stage of planning. That's the next step. I'm doing my blueprints, or I'm thinking about the blueprints, the style I want them to be, how to design it, how to create that house. The next step I go to is actually drawing up the specific blueprints to fulfill the design. Now I got this laid out on the table in front of me. I got everything here, how to form everything. In the fourth world, the world of action where we live, is we acquire the building materials and we build it according to the way that it's supposed to be built, according to our plan. And of course, God's plan is Torah. Everything he plans to do, all the prophecies, everything is in Torah. We have the 5 books of Moses, the writings of prophets, everything we need, including historical data, by the way. If you ever go and read Kings or Samuel and all these others, there's a lot of historical things there that are just absolutely amazed me when I read them. Sometimes you get so busy with the 5 books of Moses that we don't bother looking at the rest of the Tanakh. And we really should, because there's a lot of examples how to live and everything there. And actually, you get to see what happens when someone's not a good king and how long they last and all kinds of stuff. It's pretty amazing. We actually get examples. But here's what it is. The 4 worlds are Atzilut, which is emanation, Bariah, which is creation, Yitzirah is formation, and that's where the lower angels, not the archangels, but the lower angels and our souls in the Garden of Eden come from. Now, if we read the story of Genesis, how did Adam get to the Garden of Eden? It says that God went and he created him from earth. And he breathed into him and he became alive. That's when the soul went in. And then it says God set him in the Garden of Eden. God actually came to this world, the material universe we live in, took the earth of this world and created Adam. So this world and every creation in this world would know it, we belong to this world, and the world knows we belong to it. And then he took Adam and put him in the Garden of Eden and says, okay, you're my caretaker. Take care of this now. And he was actually a level up above this world. But when we say a level up, again, the Garden of Eden exists the same place everything else exists, all at one time. We just can't see it. We haven't reached that level yet. Adam was at a level that we're going to be when we go up to the next level of life. But we all know the story, and he got kicked out and everything that happened. That's all in the Torah. So every time you think of how God, when you think about the book of Genesis, remember that first there was what we call Or Ein Sof, light without end, infinite light. We have different names for God depending on it denotes where he is and what he is, but we have no name for him. He's power and light. He's there. He just exists. There's nothing else there. And what's there is included within it what we just read. The world of emanation, creation, formation, and action. Nothing can exist outside of God. That means each one of us in each world is all a part of God. We're actually, when he says we're created in his image, we're in his image, and our soul, we're a part of him. That soul was doing very nice sitting up there with him, enjoying the peace and quiet. the connection with God, the real-time connection with God. And all of a sudden God says, oh, come on, we're going to send you down now to the world of action. We're going to put you in a body down there and let you do some things. And you got to get back to me up here. And that's what we're doing. We have to climb back up the ladder to go to God. Now, he doesn't put us down here for punishment. He doesn't put us down here. I mean, we're in the perfect place. Our soul is perfect. It's right where it needs to be. But he says, no, this is part of creation. This is why I created things. You're going to go down there and you're going to reconnect with me. And it becomes a game of hide and seek, which is a very simple way of putting it. But think about this. You are placed inside the body down here where the soul cannot see or feel God because of the material stuff that's all around it, blocking God out. The whole job is to reconnect, and this is inside of yourself, reconnect yourself to God. Once you do that, even just a little ray of light comes through. It may take a long time to make a better connection, but once it comes through, you understand something greatly. What's written in Torah, and the reason I was put on this earth, and the reason I have a birth date, is because God wanted me here. And in Torah, I have to do what it is in there that he wants me to do. What does he want me to do? Well, if I'm born a Cohen, I know it says right in the Torah, everything the Cohen does. If it's a Levite, it says in there, everything that the Levite does. If I'm a little Israelite like I am, I don't have to do so much. So I just do what he has told me that I should do. And I don't have to do the Cohen stuff. I don't have to do the Levite stuff. And there's a lot of stuff I don't have to do. I don't have to learn. And then he made the rest of the world. No different than the way he made me or the Cohen or the Levite or anybody else. He made the rest of the world with the same goal, the exact same goal. You have a birth date. You come out into this earth and you're born and you're created by God to do the same thing every other soul is supposed to do. Reconnect and come back to him. He doesn't say one word, not in Kabbalah and not in Zohar and not in Torah and not in anywhere. Go set up a religion. Don't go pray to other gods. Go make something up that makes you feel better. Doesn't say one word about it. All he says is, here, reconnect to me. And that's what we're supposed to do. It's not a religious thing. It's not, okay, well, I'll choose this God, and next week I'll choose this God, and the next week I'll choose that God. There is no other gods. Anything that anybody calls God that's not Ein Sof, the endless light, the creator of all things, is an idol because man created it, God didn't. When God said he made us in his image, and it took me a long time, and I know Terry and Scott have heard me say this, probably some of you other people, you have no idea what a powerful, powerful individual your soul is. You can do whatever you want. You can take anything that God created and make something else out of it. Other beings can't do that. We can take sand and turn it into glass. We can take radio waves and throw them around the world. We can put people on Mars and on the moon. Men can build, and there's a big competition going on now for the space flights to different places, and the space flights that all the guys are doing now, Elon Musk and all them guys. We we have the power to do these things. And he gave us his power. We can do anything except create something from nothing, which is what he did when he went through the four worlds of creation. He created something from nothing, but he really didn't. He created it from himself. We can't create something from God. But when you think about a religion and praying to some other thing, you're so far disconnected from him, it's unbelievable. What's happened, and what he told the Jews to do, was be a light to the nations, show them what they're supposed to do, who they're supposed to worship, teach them about me, about the Or Ein Sof. And it's, believe it or not, and some people say the world is a bad place right now, but I don't believe it. The world is much better than it's ever been. We wouldn't see some of the things happening today that we call evil if the world was not getting better. Because everything has a balance to it. The more light you get, the more you have people put darkness in the world. Not God, people. That's a whole different teaching. But the point is, if you want to have that direct connection with God, and you want to go through your life with a connection with God, you need to put away all these other things we were taught. I did the same thing. I went through it. My goodness, I'm 76 years old, and I went through all kinds of stuff. I went off this way and off that way and off his straight way. And, sometimes I say to myself, why did you let me do that, God? But he didn't let me. It was me doing it. It was me doing it. And why? Because he doesn't download into us everything he wants us to believe at the minute of our birth. And there is a teaching in that all souls, when they come into a fetus, and as they're developing, before they're born, an angel sits down with them and tells them everything. We got all the knowledge we need in our head. Just before birth, the angel gives us a little kiss on the lips. And that's why most of us have this little line here, the top lip is formed the way it is, supposedly. And we forget everything we were taught. It's in our heads, but we forgot how to connect to it. Like, what is the name of these things? I got all the information on this little computer drive, hard compact disk, whatever you want to call it. But when I plug it in the computer, it doesn't work. It's been updated. The computer's been updated. Everything's been updated. So it's pretty cool. Oh, now I can see some more people. Harold and Karen, how you doing? And Rabba Kaparov and Hilario. Hey, how you doing? Haven't seen you in a while. Good to see you. And I'm so glad to be back and talking to people. It just makes me feel so good to connect with people. And in the words of one of the fellows that was at the Tennessee conference that I saw on video, he says, so glad to be with people that when I say the word God and Lord, they know who I'm talking about. They know the truth. And it's a wonderful thing. It's a great thing to do. Anyway, to get back where we're going. We have the four worlds, and we have what we call Sefirot. I don't even know how to say what they are. They're emotions. They're the things that we get directly from God. And we have what we call the crown. We have wisdom, understanding, and knowledge. Those belong to the head part of us up here. And to our heart belong Hod Yisod, splendor, foundation, and kingdom, victory, Tiferet. What it means is, my page is jumping. These are garments that God puts over himself You know, when people would travel back in the day, and a woman, let's say she's going out and it's right in my head comes London. It's raining and it's muddy and the horses are going by, and she puts this long cloak over her to cover her so you don't see anything underneath. So, and all the dirt and everything, schmutz gets up on that. She gets in the front door of where she's going. She takes off and the dress is revealed. Well, God hides himself under these, what we call garments. And it takes work and learning to get to each thing. Kabbalah teaches us that we must control our heartfelt emotions. Now, they're God-given, but they're basically animal. Jealousy, hate, love or lust, even happiness, whatever we feel through our hearts, these are emotions, but all animals have emotions. One way or another, God gave them a level of emotions. That's what keeps them alive and proliferating. But what makes us in God's image is we have here knowledge, wisdom, and let me just get out here so I use the same words I just used a minute ago. Wisdom, understanding, and knowledge in the same order. Wisdom, understanding, and knowledge. And what does this mean? If you ever, I'm sure you've heard stories like this, someone has a pet, it can be a dog, it can be anything, and it's the sweetest dog you ever saw in your life, always wagging its tail and almost looks like it's smiling. And someone comes by and pulls an ear, the dog snaps at whoever it is that pulls the ear, whether it's a 3-year-old or a 30-year-old, because that's a normal reaction for a dog. But for a human being, we're supposed to take that anger reaction, that reaction, filter it through our mind with our understanding and wisdom and knowledge and say, wait a minute, I shouldn't snap at this person because they didn't mean, they're just playing with me or something. If the dog had that, he would see that it was a little kid that pulled his ear and he wouldn't snap at him. He would stop, but God didn't give him that reaction time, that thought time to do that, like he like he does for us. The problem is, one of our biggest problems is that we think that what we think at the moment is right. We don't care what anybody else thinks. I know I'm right. I Googled it. I looked it up. I got all kinds of knowledge about this stuff. We can have all kinds of knowledge about stuff, but if you don't have wisdom and understanding, the knowledge doesn't work. So as you gain, we have the same thing with Torah scholars. Or they can recite stuff upside down and backwards. You can ask them a question about halakha or anything, and yeah, this is this and this is that, and this came from this book and this came from this sage and things like that. But to apply things, they're very cut and dry. When I was growing up, my dad used to say to me, that guy's pretty smart, but he has no horse sense. Everybody know what that means? He's got the knowledge to do something. He doesn't have the wisdom to apply it. Some scholars think that studying is all they need to do. They don't have to do anything else for God. Just study and understand God. And they hit a home run. But there's big discussions about that, because if you know what you're supposed to do, but you don't do what you know you're supposed to do, in other words, you just kind of ignore it, not that you do something bad, but you just ignore it, then what have you done? Nothing. It's good to have it inside your head. It's good to somebody asks me a question, I can show them how smart I am. My goodness, look at how smart I am. And it's important that we have the wisdom and understanding on how to use the knowledge we have. All the knowledge in the world doesn't help anybody if they don't get the basics of what God wants from each one of us down. And I don't care how complicated the teachings get. I don't care how deep the teachings get. God wants from me and from you one thing. Actually, two. He wants us to know him, worship him. If we need to ask for something, we come to him and ask for it, not to anybody else. And he wants us to be kind to the world, to other people. He wants us to be kind to animals. He wants us to be kind to the environment. He wants us to be kind to everything. That's what he wants from us. You know, if we go through the history of the catastrophes and the things that happened in the 5 books of Moses, the flood went because people weren't kind to one another. Every time we see this destruction, it happened because people weren't kind to one another. The Tower of Babel, when the world got divided into 70 nations, they were pretending to be kind to one another, but they weren't being kind to God at that point in time. They figured they're going to build this big tower so that they could go up to heaven, so make sure there'd be no more floods. If you read the history of them, the most surprising one to me when I got to understand it was Nineveh. Nineveh. When God told Jonah, go to Nineveh and tell them XYZ. And what happened? He went to the king of Nineveh, Sennacherib, I think it was the name of the king at the time, and told him, you know, God's going to destroy the city unless, what did he tell him to do? Did he say everybody has to fall down and worship God? Everybody has to give sacrifices to God? No. He said, unless you stop, the city will not be destroyed if you stop being nasty to each other, unkind to one another. And the king sent out, he didn't say everybody had to worship God, but everybody had to treat each other in a proper manner, and their horses and their whatever else they had, their sheep and everything else. So what God created this earth, and he created us, and he put us together to learn a big lesson. Be kind. There's no reason. Don't be jealous of somebody, and don't scream at them, and don't constantly make them feel bad. Don't make slaves out of them. Everybody belongs to God, and we're all part of that oneness. Everybody that you guys are seeing each other now on the screen, we look like individual people. Well, we are in this realm that we live, but we're not individuals, because each one of us has a soul. That soul connects to God, and it's a part of God, which means every one of us is a part of God. And if we're all a part of God, that means we're all part of each other. It doesn't make any difference what we look like. It doesn't make any difference what color our skin is. It doesn't make it, nothing makes a difference. When you sit down at your dinner table, if you have company, or if you do once a week a family meal or whatever, and you set your table in a very pleasing way, it's a nice set of dishes and silverware and glass to have your wine in and all that kind of stuff. And you look out and say, oh, look at my pretty glasses, and look at my pretty silverware, and look at my pretty pictures, and look at all these things on the table. They look like different things, but they're all the same, aren't they? They're all made from atoms. There's no difference in what they're made from. But God gave us the ability to take these atoms and move them. Let's make a picture over here, and let's make glass over here, and let's make a computer chip over here. He gave us the ability to do that. But they're not separate things. I mean, you can't put a pitcher of wine in a computer. You can't put a computer chip in a glass of wine, for sure. But we made those things to work where we were putting them. But they're all made from the same thing, just like our bodies are. Just like the stars when we look up and the sun and everything, we're all made out of atoms. And we can go even deeper down. We're all made from the same material, down to the quarks and the mini quarks and all these new things they're finding. If any of you understand quantum physics and all that, you know there's new stuff that they're finding in that place over in Europe. And they're finding something that pretty amazing, that they're saying that we actually create events. If we look somewhere and expect to see something at a certain place in time, we're going to see it. I haven't figured that one out yet, but that's what they say. The point is, we have to remember this. The guy you bump into going out the front door of your apartment building, pushing somebody aside to get quicker on the bus, or the guy that pushes you aside, like happens in some countries. It's just absolutely amazing. Which world is our prayers received? I'm sorry, I just saw that. James, how you doing? Good to see you. Listen, it isn't, our prayers are not received in a specific world, because all worlds are one thing, they're God. And God receives your prayers and he hears your prayers. You're talking to your creator. He's a part of you. It's a connection. It's almost like, and I kind of feel it that way sometimes, although I didn't feel it originally, when the fetus is forming in the womb and the baby is being fed by its mother and it becomes a baby and it takes shape. And how does that baby eat? It's connected directly to the body of the mother. And the mother is feeding that baby everything that keeps it alive. Well, God is connected to the mother, feeding the mother everything she needs to keep alive, which goes on to the baby. Once we come out, the connection to God doesn't go away. He's still giving us everything. There's a way that, and I wasn't going to talk about this tonight, but I'll digress a minute. God presents himself in two ways for us. The surrounding God and the internal God. Anybody that decides they don't want to communicate with God can do that. You don't have the internal God, but he doesn't kill you or do anything bad to you. But you still exist in what we call the all-encompassing God. Your heart doesn't stop. You don't get some weird illness because you don't believe in God. He continues to nourish you and feed you with his power. The power surrounds everything. It's in the food you eat. It's everything. There isn't any place that doesn't have that power in it. And we call it the surrounding power. You don't even have to recognize it to take advantage of it, just like the animals don't. What keeps a giraffe alive or an elephant? Why isn't a dinosaur here anymore? Because God removed the power. And then we have what we call the internal power. God connects to earth through Mount Moriah. His essence comes through there. The Shekhinah, the female part of God, is connected there, and the power flows into earth. It's flowing there now, even though there's no temple. We have in us, on the highest part of our head, a connection just like that. And God's power is flowing into us. We can recognize it or not recognize it. But if it wasn't, we wouldn't exist. Our body wouldn't exist. It wouldn't even have form. So when you recognize there's a power higher than us, when you recognize that and he loves us and he's giving us this life to enjoy. Now, that's not always a joy sometimes. Let's agree to that. We don't go around throwing rose petals in the air and singing songs all the time. things happen in life that are make us sad. And if there's something bad that we do, we did it. God didn't do it. But things happen. A loved one passes away. Someone gets sick. Hey, you lose a job. That's a sad thing too, and you have to go look for another one. Or what's happening in the world today. You just have to accept it. That there's a reason for it. We don't understand it. We may never understand it, but God has his reasons for what happens. The point is, you can make that connection to God. Every man and woman can do it. You just have to go inside of yourself. It takes some meditation. It takes some connecting. It's in you. This power, this wonderful, great power that comes from God is within you. It's within every soul. And the hardest thing to do is to look for it, to uncover the hiddenness of it that is within us. But God does it for a reason. Because he promised us something. When he created man and made it in his image, he gave us something that no other creation has. The relationship with him, yes, but he gave us free choice. Think about it. We wouldn't be sitting here discussing this today if he had created people with previous knowledge of him, and everybody was going to do the same thing, and everybody was going to act the same way, and everybody was going to go around like little robots. He could have done it. Why didn't he do it? Why did he make us individuals? That's not what he wanted. He didn't want puppets. He created us. And if you go back and read about the building of the tabernacle, he tells Moshe, he says, you're building this because you're making my home for me with you. I want to live among you. Go figure why God wanted to do it. I don't know. But he wanted to live with us. That's why this world even exists. He wants to be one with us and for us to know he's one with us. He doesn't want us to all be little puppets, and walk in the room and say, oh, dear God, we love you, and kneel down and just get up and then walk out of the room. He doesn't want that. He created us second only to him. Angels don't have the powers we have. Nothing on this earth has the powers we have to create good and to create evil. You ever want to see the story of what we call Hasatan in the Bible? Go watch the movie Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, the original movie. That's all I'm going to say about it, because it when you finish that movie, you realize what Hasatan is in the Hebrew Bible. And well, I'm going to go one step further. Hasatan is simply someone that goes to God and says, oh, look what that guy's doing over there. You asked me to report back if they aren't on the right path. Oh, look at that guy over there. And we'll talk about Job and why he went through what he went through at another time. We're talking about Kabbalah now. And we're talking about the four worlds. We're talking about the worlds that as God reduces his brightness, his total light, as he reduces it, he allows us to see what's there. The world of Atzilut, the world of emanation. In the soul, it's the level we call Chaya, the highest level. It's the life soul. In the world of Atzilut, yeah. Wait a minute. Yeah, okay. I got this on a PDF and it keeps jumping from page to page. Okay. The human expression is what we call dvikut, or embracing of God, the oneness of God. A husband and wife have dvikut when they get married. They become one. We're supposed to be one with him. Sorry, I keep looking on the wrong screen. Then a good meditation on that is the Amidah, if you were to read it and meditate on it. And in the Torah, it's considered to be the secret of all secrets. You know, that you guys have heard of the different levels of learning in the Torah. They have an acronym, Pardes. The very bottom one is secret of all secrets. Bariah, the world of creation. It's the world of science, matter, energy, things that are shaped by wisdom. Remember, we talked about we could take whatever we saw and make something out of it, but it had to be already created by God. In the soul, it's the neshama level, or the soul breath. It relates to, in the body, your brain and your breath. To you itself, it's the faculty of the mind, reasoning, doubting, wisdom, understanding. It's the mental things we have to go through. In the world, how does it express itself? The law of physics, the four basic forces of the world, laws of nature, the stuff that this is where that they are created. And the level of prayer it is at is the Shema, or actually realizing that God is one and there is no other but God, and we're a part of him. And the element that is included in that is air, ruach, the spirit. Air, yeah, the ruach comes the next world, okay. If we're reading Torah, it's the midrash, the tales, the philosophies, the theories behind it. It's the learning about Torah. Yetzirah, the world of formation, is the world of emotions, sensations, and feeling. The faculties of the heart. In the body, the heart is the center, your lungs, your circulation, your oxygen. Also, human expression comes from there. Art, poetry, awe, love, because it's all emotional things. How it's expressed in this world? Forces of love and passion and nature in the romantic sense. Also, it brings up, and this is where we bring it up, not God, but here we can, sex, violence, hatred, craving, desire comes into our heart before it comes down to this world where we are now. Prayer, it says you should cultivate the heart by reading Psalms. It'll keep your heart straight about things. In the Torah, we go up to the level of remez, or illusion of what the Torah means, which also is midrash and things like that. And let's see, Asiya, the world of action, which we're in now, it's the material. It's the world of matter and energy. This part of the soul is called the nefesh. That's the animal soul, the life force that's in us. How do we express it? Eating, sleeping, sports, sex, bodily function, all the things that we do on a daily basis. And it's the pashat, or the surface level of the Torah, the very simple stuff in Torah. So that's essentially what it is. So we've gone through the four worlds of creation. Next week, I want to go through then the Sefirot on that. James says, which world do we comprehend they are received then? I don't quite understand the question.
He's talking about a follow-up to the previous question about which world receives the prayers. I think if you'll
which world do we comprehend they are received in? Well, see, God has created these worlds, but he's not part of the worlds. He is the worlds. I don't know any way to put it. He surrounds. You know what? Let me do it this way. I've used this example before. When a woman gets pregnant, in her body is the womb, and everything grows in the womb. Well, God had to create a womb for everything he was going to create. All the universes, all the stars, all the worlds, everything he was going to create. Within himself, he created a womb. He created space, although it doesn't affect him like it affects a woman, because it doesn't change him one bit to do this. He's unchangeable. But he created this thing, and inside that womb, everything else happens. And if you get into some of the things, and you can Google it and read about it, how the universes and the expansion of the universe, they said the Big Bang, and the universes expand and contract and Big Bang again. And they found the truth that it's a constantly growing thing. Yes, there's a Big Bang, but it doesn't contract again. It's constantly growing. But at the edges of what we're talking about, this Big Bang, and you've all seen pictures of explosions in movies where it shows the sound wave coming and the blast wave coming. Well, at the very edge where these waves are, on the other side of it is nothingness, just God. But as they touch together, God is creating more something out of the nothingness. It's an amazing thing. It's scientific. It's been, that discussion's been going on for 50 years about this, since we were able to look up into the stars and see further away. But everything matches. Science matches. Science is proving God's existence. But because God is so hidden, people that think they're smart can look at it, we don't need God. God didn't do anything. This just happened. It's how they explain away the plagues in Egypt. Well, a red algae covered the water, and because of that, the frogs came out, the frogs died, and then the flies came to eat the frogs. Come on, you can rationalize anything. But the truth is the truth, and the Torah is the truth, and there is no other truth but Torah. God was here before, he'll be here after, he always is, and we're a part of him. And these worlds that we just talked about, this is how we got into existence, because only because he wanted it. And he wants to be with us. And there's no crime in saying to yourself, well, what I think is really nice, and I think what I think, but what I think doesn't mean anything. Because what God thinks is what means everything. So if I want to say X, Y, Z, or I want to say this other thing is God, and I'm going to pray to it, I've created an idol. In India, I think today, they still create household idols and gods that they pray to in their homes. Most of the world doesn't do that anymore. Most of the world, they pray to one God or another. And some of them are even monotheistic, or one of them is anyway, even though they're talking to the wrong guy. Anyway, anybody have, Scotty, anybody have any other questions? Anybody want to listen during the week? If you want to get a hold of me, do it through Tour for the Nations, or go to my Facebook page and send me questions. Next week, we're going to, and I hope everybody at least got something out of what I talked about tonight. I know it's not what you usually hear about, but it goes deeper than what you usually hear about, much deeper. And I'm trying to keep it on a level where it's interesting. There are some people, they make a connection with God without knowing all these other things, and that's good. You can do that. And sometimes when you make your connection to God, you made it. But you have to understand that what you were taught before, as you were growing up, and even myself, we still have to leave room that God is right and everything else is kind of off kilter. And we have to get to the bottom of what God wants from us. And he's not a punishing God. He loves us all. We're all going to be okay in the end. We all have eternity, because he's eternal and we're part of him. we're going to go through different stages. We're going to be a caterpillar for a while, then we're going to be a butterfly, and then who knows what else. But that's who God is. And believe me, he doesn't care what God people pray to. What he cares is that they're kind to one another. That's the number one thing. And the kindness will bring about the realization who the one true God is. And that's why he's so... Now, I got to say this. I can't sign off without saying it. One more second, Scotty. We're not to be the sugary, sweet, false, smiley kindness that people know how to do. When you walk into a store and, oh, hello, welcome to the store. And as soon as you walk by, they're back to like, oh, we have to make a habit of being kind to everybody. And when anybody looks at us, no matter where we are, they see the kindness. They feel it from us. It's not something we manufacture to put on like a party dress. They have to see that we're kind. They have to see that we're humble even, which is even harder. But we have a big battle to do, and that's a whole nother teaching. But we're going to get into that as we study these things here. And we're going to be getting into a little bit of Tanya. I don't know if some of you will know what it is, some of you won't. It's a very complicated book, but I'm doing some classes on it now where I kind of get it down to the simple, what we got to do about it. Are we a bad guy and in the middle guy? Are we a tzaddik? Are we a righteous guy? And righteousness, we have to use God's definitions. And when he says that when people of the nations leave all this other stuff and turn towards him, you become the righteous people of the nations. And you can't go to somebody and say, what are you? And the guy says, well, I'm Episcopal. And he says, well, I'm one of the righteous of the nation. We can't do that. Because then they're going to think you're, crazy and egotistical and all that kind of stuff. The word Noahide doesn't even begin to cover it. It's just a showing of the evolution of where all the information came from, essentially. Now, in Israel, we have two types of righteous of the nations. We have the people like you guys, and we also have those who actually saved Jews from dangerous situations, like during World War II and things. And they were also called righteous of the nations because you saved one life, you saved the world, right? And they deserve recognition for putting their own lives in danger. So anyway, we'll talk more. I've wanted to keep this to an hour, so we about hit that limit. Really good to see everybody, and I appreciate you being there this late at night on a Sunday night. But I hope we see you next week and bring some more people along. If anybody wants to get a hold of me or needs some one-on-one time on Zoom, get a hold of me. Be more than happy to do it. We'll set up a time. And if you have a list of questions or you want some teachings, willing to do it. Willing to do it. Don't forget, when you go out of the house in the morning, about tzedakah. Make sure you have a tzedakah box in the house. When you go to communicate with God and do prayers, before you start the praying, put a few pennies or dime or a nickel in the tzedakah box, because it shows your intent. Once you're training yourself to help others and do tzedakah. So tzedakah is not only giving money, by the way. Being kind is also tzedakah. There's a whole lot of different things. So if anybody has any dedications they want for the beginning of the next program, I'm sure also if you get a hold of Scotty, they'll be more than happy to talk about them on Wednesday nights also, when Scotty and Terry are together. So good to see you guys. Appreciate it very much you came by. God bless you all. Okay, Scotty, it's all yours.
All right. Thank you so much, Rabbi Pesach. Listen, I know you want to quit at 11, but I got to add something to what you said. You got my mind sparking here.
Okay, go right ahead.
That's just who I am. You was talking about building a house, and there's a lot of people that have this concept that they can build it on their own. But as you weigh out the cost and desire the plans, there's certain specialists you have to get involved in building. and then not only specialists, there's certain rules of thumb you have to apply to the blueprint, or it will not work correctly. And so we call that Torah.
Mhm.
We call our specialists Rabbi Pesach and the others. So
Yeah,
just thought I'd throw that in.
very good. Karen and Harold, that'll happen once in a while, but you should still be able to hear us, even if that freezes up a little bit. So, yeah, I don't know. Since the world has gone Zoom crazy and internet crazy for the last year and a half, there are times when the internets around the world get overloaded. So, yeah. Yeah, I'm so glad that you're here, and I hope to see you again next week. And like I said, you be in contact with me. That's what I'm here for, to teach. That's what God put me here for. So if you need anything, just let me know. Scotty?
Everybody, have a great week. We'll see you Wednesday night and Sunday night. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. See y'all.